Are you looking to add a dairy goat to your farm? Well, in this video, I'm going to go over the top traits and conformation details of a high-producing and healthy dairy goat. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to spot one that's right for you. I'm going to show you everything you need to know, so let's dive right in. So we're going to start by researching dairy breeds. Not all goats are created equal. You see, some have a higher butter fat in their milk, and some have more volume, and you have to decide what you're looking for. If you're looking to make things like butter and cheese and ice cream, then a high butter fat producing goat is what you're going to look for. I think that's why the Nigerian dwarves are so popular. They have a higher butter fat content than a lot of the larger sized goats. However, their volume is a lot less, so you need, of course, more of them to produce the same amount as you would with a full-size goat. There are some full-size goats that won't match but come close to producing the same amount of butter fat as a Nigerian dwarf. The Nubians are one of them. The Saanen and the Alpine is going to give you a pretty decent butter fat quantity with volume, and the Saanen is just known for volume. But you're going to have to research that for yourself, or if you want, I can get into more of a video about that. Just let me know in the comments below. Now that you've found what breed you're looking for, the search begins for the right goat. And you think you found her. Here are some questions to ask the owner. What the milk production is like. A good producing full-size goat should be able to give you at least a half a gallon a day. If you're buying a younger doe, ask what her mother's production is like. These things are genetic and will carry on through the line. So if you have a mama that makes a good amount of milk, chances are her daughter is also going to make a good amount of milk. Knowing what to look for in goat conformation is important because these standards are all based on physical indicators that often result in easy kidding, high milk production, ease of milking, and the overall good health of a high-producing doe. You arrive on scene to check out your goat. Now, what I'm about to tell you applies both to the male and the female goats. When you get there, you should be able to notice some things in general just from looking at them right away. Number one, what does their coat look like? Is it shiny? Does it feel smooth and soft, or is it coarse and looks a little rough? A rough coat is usually a sign of copper deficiency and easily solved with scheduled copper boluses. However, if a goat has had a prolonged copper deficiency, other things can happen. They can develop weak or brittle bones. Younger goats in particular may experience stunted growth. Dairy goats may have trouble maintaining a healthy weight and body condition, as well as a reduction in their milk production. Also, the does could have reproductive issues such as infertility and miscarriages. Lastly, copper deficiency can also weaken the immune system of your goat. Most goat owners are good about this, but if you see a rough coat, ask the owner about their copper bolus schedule. What is their body condition like? Now, this can be a little tricky because goats that are in milk will often be a lot thinner than goats like wethers, bucks, or doelings who don't have a kid on them or are not in milk. You want to take a look at the goat's eyes. Not only are you looking for bright eyes, but you want to check the eyelids to make sure that they're not pale, showing signs of anemia and possibly a high parasite load. Additionally, no runny poo. Their poop should look like malt balls and should not be clumped together. And lastly, what's their appetite like? If they have a healthy appetite, if they're eating grain well, if they're munching on hay, that's a healthy goat. Also, check feet. You don't want bad feet. By bad feet, I mean hooves that, I'm not talking about hooves that need to be clipped. I'm talking about hooves that are malformed. Right, Maple? Yeah. The next thing we're going to talk about is conformation, and that means just the basic build and structure of the goat itself.
Now, why this is important is because everything I'm about to talk about, and this is pertinent to the males, not just the females, breaks down into how that translates during kidding and for milking. So with that being said, let's talk about body conformation. So this is Maple, our 8-year-old La Mancha. Notice that her tail is high, held high. She is a little bit thin, but again, she is a dairy goat, but she's in pretty good condition here. Her coat is shiny and sleek. It feels soft. It is not rough and coarse. As you can see here, her chest could be squarer, but it's got a lot of, it doesn't slope quickly. It's kind of boxy, and you want that in a goat. If I look from the top down, Maple has got a very wide barrel. This is her barrel, and she's very wide. You want their shoulders to be tight. This shows a good system, and she's going to carry her back well. Her back is nice and straight. The other thing is that her rump, this is something that's important. She has a wide rump. From this point to this point, it should be as close to the same width as possible. This will make kidding a lot easier because of her body type. We talked about the angularity of their legs, straight up and down from their shoulders is what you want. Well, if they've passed that test, now it's time to dig a little bit deeper into the specifics of this animal. And this is where we'll separate the males and the females. The does, which are the females, should have a good udder attachment. For the udder, you're going to look for an udder that is well attached. That means the top of it is as close as it can be to the underside of the goat. And the other thing you're going to look at is teat placement. Teats that point outward are harder to milk and harder for the babies to get to sometimes because they can go close to the mom's leg. You're going to look for teats that are almost in the center and slightly pointed forward. And the median, which is the line that separates the two halves of the udder, is distinct. You do not want to get a goat where it's all flat and you can barely tell that there's a division between them. Additionally, how big are the orifices that the milk comes out? You may or may not care, but I'm going to tell you it's a lot faster to milk a goat that has larger orifices than the ones that don't. And then the rule of thirds when it comes to their udder. So if I stand her the way she's supposed to stand, wah! So yeah, if she stands like that when her udder is absolutely full, the law of thirds will come into effect, which means you can see a third of her udder in the back, a third of her udder in the front, and a third is hidden behind her back leg. Maple's actually very good for that. There is a bump inside their udder here, and it's more pronounced when she's in full milk, but you can see how it stands out like that. The closer this is to their pin bones, the better it is. So she actually, this is called, I think it's called an excussion. This is her excussion, and considering that she is 8 years old, her udder has held up pretty well. Yes, there's some sagging, but if you notice, her teats do not come below her knees, and that is a sign of a very good goat. Personally, I would never buy a goat whose teats hung below their knees. Now, why do you care? A goat who has good attachment over time is good. Yes, the udder is going to sag, but it's not going to sag to the point that it makes it so low that it makes it hard to milk her. Do not buy a dairy goat with 4 teats. There are some meat goats that have 4 teats, but dairy goats do not have 4 teats. This is an undesirable trait in the dairy goat world, and it's best not to perpetuate them by breeding them. Now for a male, I know this seems crazy, but you are going to have to look at his junk, his testicles, because that's where the females get their udder shape from.
When checking a buck, make sure his testicles are firm and symmetrical. This will translate into a firm and symmetrical udder on his daughters. As you can see, he's not 100% symmetrical, but his medial split is strong. This will translate into an udder with a strong medial support ligament.
Okay, this is my pretty buck Prince, and he's 3 years old, and he's coming into himself. Definitely needs a nail trim. I will get to that here in a minute. But as you can see, we're going to look at him the same way we're looking at the girls. He has a nice deep chest. You see that? Even with his winter fur, you can see it. Tight shoulders. His top line is pretty straight. The fur kind of messes it up, but yeah, he's got a pretty straight top line. And again, he's got a wide back end. You can pass it on to his daughters. Again, his back end is as wide as my hand. As you can see, the conformation is the same as with the girls. From his shoulders down to his feet, straight line. He's a good boy. Right, Prince, you a good boy? You stink. Yeah, I brought you in here because of the people. I typically won't take him out to clip his nails till he's over rut. But I probably will bring him back now that he's up here. You stink. Boy, you stink. The other thing I would ask is, what is generally the health practices on that particular farm? Do they test for CAE, CL, and Johne's disease? Do they treat herbally for parasites, or do they use conventional dewormers? All these things are important to know how your herd has been handled or how your goats have been handled before you bring them home. You know, picking the right dairy goat is quite an investment for you and your family. Please, you don't have to go really expensive on them, but you do try to get the best quality dairy goat that you can get with what you can afford. Because if you don't pay upfront, you're going to wind up paying for it later. Just trust me on that one. If you want me to dig deeper into any of the subjects that I touched upon today and more specifics, go ahead and leave a comment below, and I'll make sure to make another video addressing those specific things. Hopefully this has helped you come closer to finding the right goat for you. If this video has been helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with others. And until next time, goodbye from Maplewood Homestead.